A lot of people don't struggle with boundaries because it's not that they don't know what to say. It's that they struggle because they feel selfish. And if that's you, then, well, that makes sense. So if you've been taught to be the nice one, the one who keeps the peace and the one who doesn't want to cause any problems, then of course setting a boundary is going to feel very uncomfortable. And let's face it, it's going to be difficult. And not only that, you're going to be branded as the difficult one for trying to put your foot down and putting a boundary in place. Because somewhere along the way, you did learn this. Setting boundaries and putting yourself first is selfish. And I'm here to tell you that that's not, no matter how drastic the case may be. But let's try and reframe that. So a boundary isn't taking something away from somebody else, okay? It's about no longer giving at your own expense. It's about saying, my time matters, my energy matters, my peace matters, and darn it, my feelings matter, okay? And yes, when you start doing that, people are not going to like it. They're not. And not because you're doing something wrong, but because they were benefiting from you having no boundaries, because you were a pushover and because they used to do and say and treat you however they wanted. But the moment you started saying, no, thank you, I don't want that, or that doesn't sit very well with me right now, or I just can't take that on right now, you change the status quo. That's not how you usually behave. And yes, some people, particularly the toxic people in your life, will reveal themselves as such because they will respond to your boundary in that sense. Now, I've had situations certainly where friends of mine, I've spoken to them and we've had a chat and they've said, Jenna, I really can't take that on right now. And yes, sometimes when they say that, you get that initial kind of, rejection, and it doesn't feel very nice. But as a self-reflective person, I'll go back and say, I'm so sorry. I hope you don't mind that I asked this of you. I actually respect and admire you for letting me know that that's something that you can't take on right now. And I really hope that you're okay. And I'm here for you if you want to talk about things. You're not going to get that reaction from everybody, but treating people the way that you wish people treated you is a good place to start. If people just blow up and explode at the idea of you putting your foot down and saying, do you know what, I really can't take that on right now. And then what you do is goes, oh my God, I can't believe you're being so selfish. I mean, you would usually help me out with this. Do you not care about me? And then they're piling on the guilt and making you feel terrible. And it's like, hold on, who is the bitter person in this scenario? And even though they're saying really hurtful things, they can hurt you. But let's be clear, they're not truth. Is any of that true? Are you selfish? Are you being bitter? Are you being unkind? And then that person might very well go and tell other people, can't believe she always does this and she's just decided out of the blue and now I've been left in the lurch. Why is that everyone else's problem? And believe me, I've had my share of dealing with people like this, and they are mind-numbingly frustrating. And actually, it's very upsetting when you discover that there's someone close to you. Maybe they're a family member, maybe they're a sibling, maybe they're a partner, maybe they're a friend, a very close friend, someone you hang out with regularly. And maybe it's one of these people and you're forced to sit and think, geez, like, really? Are you going to treat me like that? That's awful. You're making me feel horrible about just saying no and saying, I'm sorry, I just can't take that on right now. And that's your boundary. I'm sorry, I just can't take that on right now. And you know what? Your reasoning isn't important here, but your reason could be, I just don't want to. Your reasoning could be, they're always asking me to do stuff and I really don't want to do it. Your reasoning could be, emotionally, I've actually got enough of my own stuff going on right now. I actually don't have the capacity to take yours on. But then you don't owe them an explanation either. And that's another thing about boundaries, is that you just basically say, yeah, this is what you're going to do. I can't take this on. But when somebody then questions that is an example of someone pushing your boundary. But you always do it. Yeah, but I've said that I can't take this on right now. So using the NVR approach, which is just where you repeat over and over and over and you just keep saying it like you're a broken record, soon they'll get the picture. I just can't take this on right now. I'm sorry, but no. And in most cases, I mean, I'm still terrible for saying sorry, but you shouldn't even need to say sorry. Let's be honest. But they're benefiting you, like, from you not having any boundaries. That is the pure and simple part. So the key truth in this, let's be very clear. Selfish is expecting someone to constantly sacrifice themselves for you. Self-respect is saying, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that anymore. So you may have been doing it before, you may have been doing this for quite some time, but you're not going to anymore. And that's the confusing, confuzzling part for people. That's what they don't understand, but you were content to do it before. Yes, I was. And then I realized I was emotionally exhausted from all of that. And it wasn't actually benefiting me. It was unbalanced. It was benefiting you. And so now I've decided to stop doing the thing that I previously was content to do. You're perfectly within your rights to say no to that. And it'll annoy people. It'll unsettle people. And one of the biggest things with setting boundaries is that you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You need to get comfortable with being branded as the difficult one, as the one that's changed for the better. Okay, so disappointing others is often part of no longer abandoning yourself. That's the key basis here. Okay, and feeling guilty doesn't mean you are selfish. It just means you've got empathy, for goodness sake. You're allowed to take up space in your own life. Did you hear me there? You are allowed to take up space in your own life. And choosing yourself does not make you selfish. Not one iota. I had a situation last year where I was struggling with the co-parenting side of my separation. And I was being triggered beyond all belief. I didn't get an enormous amount of time at drop off because Dad was always so keen to be in the car and just drive off as soon as the handover was done. But after having the kids for a few days, I never really felt like, we had enough time to exchange on how the kids had been. So I sort of get into the habit of making a phone call or perhaps sending a message through the co-parenting app just to check all this sort of stuff out and just be like, so how was child number 1 and 2 and 3? And so that I didn't feel like what I wanted was to essentially get the information so that I could deal with it at the time and not have to be messaging like 3 days later saying, child number 2 has just told me this and could you explain more about it? I just wanted a full rundown so as I could get on with my darn week. And quite often, I think he found these conversations very triggering, as did I. But coming from a period of defense here, I was always getting triggered on the phone. And oftentimes when that happened, he would do this thing where he would just walk away when I was speaking to him. And it made me feel like I wasn't being listened to. It made me feel like I was really, really struggling inside of that. Because it wasn't my voice I needed heard, it was my kids' voices I needed heard. And this was the most important thing for me. And he wasn't listening. And it used to just trigger and upset me. So that door would shut and I'd get upset and I'd have a panic attack and I'd be crying. And my poor kids were having to see all that. And that's just not fair. And this went on for a really long time. So last August, I got to a point where I'd actually had enough. And before I set the boundary, I took action. And he went to drop off the kids one day and he came to the door. He'd upset me. We'd already had a conversation. He went to drop the kids off. I packed a bag. I handed him the bag and I said, take them away. I can't do this. You have triggered me so much. And I am telling you right now, I don't want my kids seeing this anymore. I need a few days. To calm down. So when they come back, they are not seeing a version of me that I don't like. I don't want to be upset and be sad in front of my kids anymore. And I am sick of you being the cause of that. So take the kids and go. And I was devastated because I'd missed them and I was going to miss them even more. I can't stand being without my kids. But I took those few days and I was like a new woman after it. Was that selfish? Don't know. You tell me in the comments. I don't feel like that. I felt I was racked with guilt I felt selfish at the time. I was made to feel selfish, believe me. And I felt guilty. I felt enormously guilty. But it wasn't selfish. I had to put my own life mask on. I looked after these kids Sunday through Friday, and I had to deal with whatever it was I had to deal with every week when they were coming back. And it wasn't always easy. Sometimes it took a day or two to get the youngest like into shape again, because she'd been so discombobulated and out of her routine. It was just hard work. I don't need to tell other single parents that. They know what I'm talking about. Co-parenting is tough. And I wasn't being selfish. I know that. Because when I went to pick my kids up, I was the version that I needed to be, and they would not have seen that version on Sunday. And when your children are repeatedly, and other people, friends, family, seeing you in this state over and over and over, that has an effect. That does affect other people. It absolutely does. And you've got to take responsibility with that. And I did. And I went inward and I reflected and I changed that. And then came the boundary. If you ever do that to me again, if you do that to me again and you get me to the state where I am that upset prior to drop off, you can expect that I will hand them back to you and have you care for our children until I am better, because no one gets to make me feel like that. Nobody gets to bring me down to my knees and make me feel that small and then drive off and have a lovely week, not giving it a second thought while I'm having to care for our children. No, because in those moments, I was not the strong one, and they needed a parent who wasn't crying and falling over themselves all the time. They needed a parent who they could look to for stability, or a guardian that they could look to for stability and reassurance. And I was neither able to provide either one of those things at that time, because that person had triggered me so. Was I selfish? No. I was putting myself first. And fortunately, I've not had to do that again. That is a boundary that did have an effect. That was someone that realised actually the consequences for me is that I'd have to take quite a bit of time off work. I probably wouldn't get paid. That's going to massively impact and inconvenience my life. I had better not do that again. And they didn't. In all fairness, they didn't. And good, because our kids don't deserve that. I don't deserve that. They don't deserve that. Okay, you can wind each other up and things, and things get a bit tit for tat whenever we're talking about separation and divorce, but there's pushing it too far and then just expecting there to be no consequences. And this is where the people on the other side of the boundary get confused. Actions have consequences, and we will start to explore that a little bit more. So that's my example to you of what the myth of selfish looks like when you have to put down a pretty strong boundary. Naturally, in that situation, I had to take the action first and then say, that is my boundary going forward. If this continues, that is what you shall expect I shall do. And I'd already put my money where my mouth is, and I had already said what I was going to do, and I executed that, and I didn't go back on it. I made sure that I followed through on what I wanted to do, no matter the cost to anybody else. I had to put myself first in that situation. And when I look back at how I handled that and how happy the kids were when they saw me that day, and actually I still have photographs of the day that I went to pick them up. And I remember what I wore, and I got myself looking all pretty. It was a beautiful summer's day. And my kids and I just, from then on, things just got better. So there's a boundary that worked out for the best. Maybe not for all parties involved, because it absolutely peeved and annoyed the people who the boundary was taken out against, naturally. But it had a lasting effect for the people that it mattered most to, me and my kids. So if you can resonate with that, then great. Please come back and join me for another myth and another episode on another day. I've been Jenna, your boundary coach. Protect your peace, because your body remembers.